So as we close out 2024 and look back at what this year had to offer, I think it's been a somewhat turbulent, albeit still a fun overall year for gaming. It's definitely been hit or miss in terms of AAA gaming, but it still had its standouts. In fact, I actually believe there will be a few games that goes down as all-time classics from this year, and I want to talk about those in today's video. Today, we're going to talk about my top 10 games of the year, or in other words, my version of Game of the Year. So without further ado, let's have some fun with it and get right into it. Number 10, Black Myth: Wukong. And I think in some ways this spot exemplifies what type of year we had. This is a Chinese-developed AAA game, and it set records as it went on to sell 30 million copies worldwide, which is just absolutely insane, and for a very good reason. This is a good game. Yet, even with all that, I still only have it at my number 10 spot. I mean, this is a beautiful and challenging action-adventure game that takes you on a journey through Chinese mythology. Wukong is based on a popular novel in China, and we've seen different versions of Wukong over the years. There's been other games, there's been shows, and even the popular Dragon Ball is largely inspired by the historical novel. But now we can put Black Myth: Wukong high up on the list, not only because its depiction, but also because of its rewarding gameplay. And that's the thing about this game. If you like well put together boss fights that will challenge you, this is a game that really puts your skills to the test. My only thing about this game, though, is that it's not necessarily well optimized. I hope we get a PlayStation 5 Pro patch eventually, but as of now, PC is probably the best way to play Wukong if you have a capable enough rig. Number 9, and this one was a big surprise for me, Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown. Now, its story, I'd say, is simply just okay. It's not going to necessarily win any awards or anything like that, but it's, however, the gameplay that really sets it apart. I mean, we've gotten a lot of Metroidvanias these past 7 years, but The Lost Crown immediately shoots up to the top of must-plays if you like this genre. It has pretty much everything that you'd want in a game like this. It has fun combat that can be as challenging as you want it to be. You can make it as easy or difficult as you want. Of course, I immediately put it on hard, and it's as every bit as rewarding as I wanted it to be. More so is that its platforming is really good. I usually find this to be a weak point for this genre, but not in The Lost Crown. It comes from the same studio that brought us Rayman Origins and Legends, and you can absolutely tell that their expertise was all over this game. This is probably one of the best platforming Metroidvania games I've played pretty much since Ori and the Will of the Wisps, and that component is enhanced even further thanks to its time manipulation abilities that you unlock as you progress through the game. Number 8, Helldivers 2. In an era of live service games where developers and publishers, kind of takes advantage of their consumers pretty much every chance that they can get, I tend to be a little bit skeptical of these type of games. So when Helldivers 2 first released, I didn't really think much of it, but then I played it. And wow, this game really surprised me. It doesn't have a lot of the predatory nonsense that we just so often see in these type of games, and it's just a really well put together third-person shooter. It's got this almost goofy nature to it that feels like a parody, and that radiates into its gameplay. It's all about that fun factor. And what makes this game just so special is in how they emphasize its teamwork. Some of the missions in this game can be very challenging, and the only way to overcome that challenge is by working together as a team. Every little thing that you do requires teamwork in Helldivers 2. You want to use a missile strike? Well, you might want to have a teammate that has your back and another one that can call out the button inputs that you need to press. So, I mean, if anything else, Helldivers 2 is the best cooperative game of 2024, and by all means, I fully expect it to live up to that mantra in the coming years as well, with more content to come, such as the new Killzone 2 collaboration. Very much looking forward to that. Number 7, Anton Blast. I mean, if Helldivers 2 is the best cooperative game, well, then Anton Blast is debatably the best independent game, and absolutely the best 2D platformer. I mean, this game is every bit as chaotic as it looks on screen here, and something that might really catch you by surprise is its challenge. This is not a platformer for the faint of heart. It's a game that was heavily inspired by Wario Land and Crash Bandicoot, and just like the latter, it is deceptively difficult. much more so than the recently made Pizza Tower, which shares some of the same developers. So what you do is you're going to run and smash your way through each stage, and then when you reach its end, well, then it's time for happy hour, where you run all the way back, and during all of this chaos, and there's a lot of things on screen, they're really going to put your skills to the test. You're going to need to master its unique moveset to overcome some of its obstacles, and I mean, it's chaotic and it's manic, but it's a truly special platformer, and I fully expect its popularity to grow extensively throughout 2024 as more people discover just how good it actually is. Number 6, Stellar Blade. Now, this is another AAA game from a region that we're not typically used to seeing. This is a South Korean-made game, and I love that we're seeing a rise from regions like this because they have a completely different vibe to them. And as I was playing through Stellar Blade, that really felt front and center to me. The way its story unfolds and the way its world is designed just feels unique compared to what we're used to seeing. Now, of course, there's the iconic protagonist, and there's been a lot of bizarre conversations online about her design, but there's so much more to her character and to this game in its entirety. I found her to be a likable protagonist with an interesting story the more it unfolds. It's a personal story, and it's about a mystery of what happened to her dying world and why she's tasked to do the things that she's being told to do. I don't think it'll necessarily win any awards for a story, but I thought it was interesting and enjoyable, and I really came away liking several of its characters as it reached its end credits. Its gameplay, though, that's the true star of the show here, and it's one of those games that just really further convinces me that we need more linear style games with just good level design, because that's exactly what you get in Stellar Blade. It's a fantastic hack and slash game that offers a lot of challenge, especially when it comes to its bosses, and it's also just one of the best looking games of this generation, period. Just absolutely incredible. Number 5, Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. Now, out of all the games in this list, this one here is the one that surprised me the most. When I first heard that Bethesda and Machine Games was going to work on a new Indiana Jones game, I immediately thought to myself, well, looks like Xbox finally got their own Uncharted game. I mean, Uncharted was inspired by Indiana Jones after all, so the gameplay formula was certainly there for the taking. But that's not what they did even in the slightest. Instead, they made it completely their own thing by combining a first-person view with stealth-based gameplay. And in retrospect, this was the perfect choice. Because of this, it feels more like an authentic Indiana Jones experience. You're not going to go out guns blazing, but instead, you're going to use your wits, you're going to sneak around, you're going to solve puzzles. And if you get into a little bit of trouble, well then, as you know, Indy isn't afraid of a little bit of fisticuffs. Now, it's not necessarily a perfect game, though. The enemy AI is remarkably bad, even on its hardest difficulty option. But I mean, outside of that, it's got a good story with mostly likable characters. It feels like an authentic Indiana Jones experience, and it's got some of the most unique and just some of the freshest gameplay that I've seen for a AAA game in quite some time. Number 4, Silent Hill 2. For as long as I can remember, I've always heard that Silent Hill 2 is one of the greatest horror games ever made that's inspired countless games that's come after it. But even that did not prepare me for just how good this game truly is. I don't think there's a single game that I've ever played that elicits an atmosphere quite like it. It's terrifying, it's unique, it's bizarre, and as soon as you enter its foggy world, it almost feels like you're being put into a hypnagogic, dreamlike state. You almost have to kind of wonder if everything that you're seeing is nothing more than a nightmarish hallucination. And I mean, there are some absolutely grotesque and just downright terrifying enemies in this game. I think that's one of the most beautiful things about this game and story, though. If you pay attention, everything is connected. You're going to meet all of these different characters, and the conversations with them is just bizarre, to say the least. But they're important in the sense that they help you understand what's actually happening in this nightmarish town that's known as Silent Hill. Its mystery and story is personal to the protagonist, but the way it's told is almost like a form of poetry, with a lot of its meaning told through symbolism. The way it's depicted and the way it unfolds is something truly special. And the ones that pay close attention, those are the ones that's going to be truly rewarded with one of the most beautifully crafted horror games ever made. Number 3, Metaphor ReFantazio. Some of my favorite games of all time comes from the Persona series. So as soon as I heard that the same team that worked on 3, 4, and 5 was working on a brand new IP, it immediately drew my interest. Though, okay, calling it a new IP doesn't necessarily feel correct in this case because I feel like it would be more accurate to call it a new take on the Persona SMT formula. There's a lot of similarities between the three, but you could argue that ReFantazio is their best work. I mean, they're all great in their own ways, so it really just kind of depends on which one connects with you the most. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer here, but as we've come to expect, it has another rich story filled with compelling characters and villains. But this time, it's set in more of a fantasy political drama, and there's a good chance that it's going to suck you in right away. So what I can say here is just kind of pace yourself and let it absorb you into its world. I think that's the best way to play these type of games because they just have so much to offer. Now, its performance surprisingly isn't the best on base consoles, but I'll tell you one thing, ReFantazio will go down as one of the all-time great JRPGs. Now, speaking of all-time greats, let's go talk about my number 2 game being Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I am such a huge fan of the Final Fantasy VII series. In my opinion, the original was and still is one of the greatest stories with some of the most memorable characters made in any medium ever. It really is that good. The thing that I love the most about the remakes is in how they're fleshing out this timeless story and these beloved characters even more. I already thought Part 1 was amazingly well told, and Rebirth takes it a step further by opening up its world even more. Now we can kind of see what the original would have looked like with the right technology in place. And my goodness, there is just so much to do in this game. Like, it is absolutely insane just how much content there is in Rebirth. And at times, it might feel a little bit padded out. But I could also say that this is a love letter for fans that's been asking for these games for decades by this point. It's almost surreal to see it come to life in this way. And I really feel like Square Enix has put a lot of effort and, more importantly, a lot of heart into these remakes/sequels in disguise. Now, I still need to see Part 3 before I make my final judgment for these games. But so far, I mean, one of the greatest games of all time is quickly becoming one of the greatest trilogies of all time. And at the number 1 spot, yeah, it is Astrobot. For years, I have been saying on this channel that Astrobot VR Rescue Mission and Astro's Playroom are some of the best 3D platformers that I've ever played, and I 100% meant that. So when they announced a new Astrobot with an actual budget behind it, I was absolutely elated. Team Asobi finally got a legitimate opportunity to showcase their talent for the world to see, and they didn't pull any punches whatsoever. This game is every bit as charming as I wanted it to be. It's got that nostalgic flavor of when games were created to just be simply fun. Every single level in this game feels like the team poured their heart and soul into its gameplay. The callouts to some of gaming's most iconic characters, its creative abilities, the music, and especially in some of the crossover stages. They are just so good. It's actually hard to play this game and not smile. It's just a pure joy to play. And I get it. I've seen the conversations online. Oh, it's inspired by Mario. Yes, it's inspired by Mario, and even the team themselves have acknowledged that. But I want to ask you one thing. Is there a single game on this list that wasn't inspired by something else? That's a big no, because at the end of the day, it comes down to execution. And without a doubt, Astrobot is one of the absolute best 3D platformers of all time, and it is my personal favorite game of 2024. This year might have lacked those big AAA blockbusters, but we still got games like this that had a ton of heart and soul into it and will be remembered for a long time to come. Anyways, though, that's going to be it for this list. I hope you all enjoyed it, and now we get to kind of look forward to 2025 and hopefully a good year in gaming. In the meantime, though, let me hear about some of your favorite games in the year of 2024, and until next time, subscribe and peace out.